All Blacks and the Sharks, folks. Greatest rivalry match number 2, and it's 54 points to nil. So a much better showing from the All Blacks. If you said they kind of went below expectations against the Stormers, they probably exceeded expectations here. I, for one, wasn't getting too down about the All Blacks' performance against the Stormers because it's a tour game. It's not a test. And likewise, I'm not going to be getting overly excited about this one. It's pleasing. The All Blacks played much better. Even if you take the Sharks out of the equation, if you're just looking at the conditions, I thought the All Blacks played well in the conditions. Handling in the wet, very good. But 54-0 against a very youthful Sharks side, I'm not going to be getting overly excited. Of course, I'm very pleased, but 54-0. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame we didn't see a bit more from the Sharks, but pleasing from an All Blacks perspective. I thought they caught high balls pretty well. I thought they found a lot of space with the kicking game. As I said, the handling in the wet was immaculate. The scrum was better. There were a lot of areas which were improved from the All Blacks. But yeah, we've still got a game against the Bulls to go before we get to test match number 1. We'll go through some of the key events and the stats. You guys can let us know your thoughts. Obviously, Ma'anono was a big talking point about this game. After the All Blacks did Kamate, the haka, Ma'anono replied with a solo version of Kapoaponga, which was a pretty crazy moment. I've never seen anything like that before, so that was something. But it was definitely very wet. Very wet in Durban. The pitch, particularly down one end, was quite waterlogged, even though the rain largely eased off. There was a lot of water in the pitch. And yeah, it was affecting play for sure. But as I said, I'm pretty pleased with the way the All Blacks handled the ball. I thought the rain might keep the score line a bit down, but 54 points. The Sharks fired their best shot early. The Sharks did not fire many shots in this game, but they fired one early. They got a penalty. I think it was Preston gave away a pretty soft penalty. I thought Preston played pretty well. First start for the ABs at 9, but he gave away a penalty. The Sharks went to the maul, and the All Blacks goal line defense held out pretty well. The Sharks got held up. That's pleasing for the All Blacks to keep them to 0, but to also handle the early pressure. And they were catching the high balls. I think clearly they've done a bit of work on the high balls because the Sharks peppered them. That was, apart until maybe like the 60th something minute, the Sharks didn't really chuck the ball around. Again, the conditions, you play the conditions. The All Blacks are weak under the high ball. Why wouldn't you kick them high balls? But they certainly went to it. But largely the All Blacks, they caught quite a lot of them, which is a big improvement from the Stormers where they didn't catch any. They seem to be taking some of them with their back to the ball, catching it over the shoulder, maybe to use your back as a bit of a shield against the on-rushing guy trying to tap it. But D-Mac caught one. He hurt his ankle doing it. He ran it off after a while, but his ankle saw him leave the field before halftime. D-Mac, so fingers crossed he's all right. He had it all strapped up, ran it off for a bit, but had to go off. But at least we were catching the high balls. The All Blacks were looking to use the kicking game to expose the Sharks' very youthful, inexperienced back three. Ruben Love kicked the nice 50-22, but the Sharks' loose head prop Rolofs was able to win a turnover to at least snuff out the All Blacks' first chance. So both sides unable to convert on their first chances, but then we did get one from the All Blacks. Fehi Whenganofo on 18 minutes is able to get the first try in the corner. And to be fair, it was the All Blacks giving the Sharks a bit of a taste of their own medicine from a free kick. Geordie Barrett chucked up a high ball, and it was Tupaia who was able to tap it back, close range, and then Josh Lord with the offload out wide to Whenganofo. It's a nice try. It's a nice conversion. Ruben Love kicked pretty well from his sideline conversion, 7 points to 0. And like I said, the All Blacks were finding all kinds of space in that backfield. Geordie Barrett was particularly good at that. Eventually, Quinn Tupaia looked to have put a dink through for D-Mac for a try, but that one's TMO'd. And I talked about it in the preview. TMO there is just a little bit too slow. A little bit too slow, a lot too slow. When you saw that grounding, you doubted it was scored, right? I looked at that and thought, has he grounded that? TMO should have been onto that one like a flash, but no. D-Mac scores, conversion is done, they pop it up on the big screen, crowd boos, ref goes, oh bugger, we better have a look at that. That's too slow. Too slow. That should have been dealt with. Well, this is not a test match, it's pretty bloody top level rugby. It's supposed to be a big tour. Professional game. That can be better. Not opposed to TMO at all. Get the decisions right, but that's too slow. Efficiency. I want efficiency. That was inefficient. They should have spotted that one a lot earlier. Didn't make too much difference because D-Mac managed to score not too long later. Great. The TMO checked this one as well, but the bloody splashing of the water on the ground means Mike Adamson can't definitively see whether the legs were in touch or whether the ball touched the goal line first. But on-field decision try, I'm happy, if it's 50-50 like that, go with the on-field decision. That's what they do. But great width from the All Blacks. Left wing, cross-quick right wing from the Geordie Barrett. Fehi to D-Mac. Great try in the conditions. 14 points to nil. Great conversion. That's the final scoring, though, for halftime. So relatively low scoring first half. It is the second half, definitely, that blows out. I mean, there was some skill execution errors, you can call it, at the end of that first half, like errant kicks. Ruben Love kicking it dead, trying to kick off or chew off too many meters. Caleb Clark out on the full, his kicking game's not great. Vusi Moyo also out on the full, so a few too many errors maybe from both sides to end the first half. Possessions 56% to the Sharks. They've also had more territory, 55%, but line breaks 5-zip to the ABs. There's been 16 kicks apiece, which again with the conditions maybe makes sense. The penalty count 6-5. All Blacks would like to keep that lower, and they do in the second half, fortunately. Second half starts, Almua gets himself held up, so very close to a try, but it doesn't take too long before we do see the first scoring for the ABs. It's Clark, and it's a nice wee direction change from Kyle Preston. Wide ball left, Satiti with the final pass, but yeah, a bit of bamboozling effort, I guess, from the All Blacks to change direction on the Sharks defender, so 21 points to nil, and that's, I guess, the floodgates really do start to open in the second. Fehi gets a scrappy one. It's encouraging, very encouraging to see the All Blacks playing with confidence in the wet to pop the ball as they were. But Geordie Barrett, kind of with a failed grubber, it barely goes through. Ruben Love puts the footballing skills to hack it. And then Caleb Clark with the wide ball to Fifi-Onofo. 28 points to nil. We're almost at the predicted kind of margin because the prediction from the bookies was 34, 35 points. We're not too far from that point. The Sharks did actually start to run a bit of ball, but the All Blacks, I thought, defense was able to hold pretty well. And then, again, the great hands from the ABs. Tupaya, Love, Jacobson, Geordie Barrett finishes off a nice All Blacks play. 35 points to zip. We get a really nice length of the field one, and basically we're talking All Blacks tries from here until full time. They don't kick exit Tupaya. At the initial breakout, he was playing like a man possessed, very confident. We got Narawa, we got Clark, and then Preston with the finish on the support line. 42 points to nil. It is starting to blow out. Tava Nawai, after Nonu's come on and smoked Ruben Love on one big carry, he gets a close range one, 47 points to nil. They probably should have had another one, but from a defensive from the back tackle from Lorenzo Julius, it was a great scramble D from the Sharks, but it only held them out for a wee bit longer because Sam Darry, who'd been very busy on the carry, very busy on the tackle, he got one from a kind of pop close range ball, and it started with the All Blacks winning a scrum penalty, which is also pretty pleasing. So 54 zip. The Sharks maybe had their best ball in hand play at 79th minute. Lorenzo Julius again with his hands on the ball, but final knock on sees the All Blacks not concede any and run in a bunch. So very, very lopsided second half. The All Blacks, as I said, the handling was great. The Sharks eased off on the high balls, which they weren't getting enough pay from that first half. But the All Blacks defense was able to shut them down pretty well. So possession finishes 61-39 and territory 51-49. So in the second half, the All Blacks 76% possession and 57% territory. So the All Blacks really, really dominated that second half. Run meters is 534 to a mere 139. So this, as I said, the Sharks just didn't get any go-forward ball on the carry. They were, limited is the best way to put it. They first half, they hit and hope with those high balls, right? But when it wasn't paying off, there wasn't that much to fall back on. Defenders beaten, 25-15. Penalty count, the All Blacks kept it under 10 for a change. It was 8-9. So remember, there were 6 in the first, or 5 in the first half. 6 in the first half, 6. So only 2 penalties conceded in the second half is pretty pleasing. Kicks from hand was 34-24. Like I said, they put in a lot of kicks to space, and it worked pretty well against the Sharks' inexperienced backfield. 15 offloads in this wet conditions is also pretty pleasing because they didn't drop that much ball. Clean breaks, 15-1. It's a hiding. It's an absolute hiding. I'm not sure. Do you get more from this one, or do you get more from the Stormers game in terms of build-up for the tests? I don't know. It ends up as a bit of a training run. But at least the first half was a bit of an arm wrestle, and they had to work for it. Had to handle those high balls. Had to get the scrum going. Scrum still conceded a couple of penalties, but largely pretty good. You can see Dave Rennie's imprint on the game. Who are your top carriers? Clark is 1. Fifi-Onofo is 1. And Tupaya is 1. They love getting the ball out to the back line. Fehi had 12 carries, 3 clean breaks, 6 defenders beaten. Tupai also had a couple of line breaks and 5 defenders beaten as well. Manuch Tuka, 14 tackles and 4 defenders beaten, was probably the star of the show for the Sharks, but there wasn't that much going for them, sadly. And like Luke Jacobson, 13 tackles from him. He continues to impress. But yeah, the All Blacks game 2, it's a big old win. Offered in the feedback in terms of like what they get from some of the pundits and whatnot, you're basically only as good as your last game. So the All Blacks were terrible after the Stormers game. They're going to be amazing after this one. But like I said, I feel like it's probably somewhere in the middle. The All Blacks were all right. And we'll see how they come with test time. But we've still got a game against the Bulls first. We'll see how that one goes too. You guys let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.